What kind of crops does a farmer raise? Well, when we talk about farmers raising a crop, they cultivate crops. Ooh, that's a fancy word. I think I need to write that down. Cultivate. And I think I will put a circle with a drop box under it. Cultivate. And notice, I just think aloud what the word means. Cultivate. Oh, that means that they grow the crops. They take care of the crops. Turn to your buddy. What do you think cultivate means? Oh, that's a fancy word for they grow their crops. Once I use the word, I have them say what it means. I put it in my Dropbox. I could have drawn a picture, or I just could have a keyword to say what it means. All right, let's go back and read our notes now. Ready? Notice I'm starting from the beginning. Constant rehearsal of the whole piece. All year long, farmers raise crops and livestock. They cultivate their crops. Wow. Let's see. What do they cultivate when they grow their crops? Oh, they cultivate plants and they cultivate, so let me see. I'm going to put like some wheat here. Maybe I'll put a carrot. Maybe I'll put an apple tree. Ooh, and here's another type of plant, and we'll put like a little bushy round circle there, a bunch of them, for cotton. So they cultivate or grow plants like wheat, carrots, apples, and even cotton. Ooh, let's go back and read our notes again. This is great information. Ready? Go. All year long, farmers raise crops and livestock. They cultivate their crops by growing wheat, carrots, fruit or apples, and cotton. Notice every time I reread this, I may reread it a little bit differently. We're not looking for memorization, just for it to sound academic and to make sense. Let's go ahead and let's find out more about this. Wow, they cultivate different types of plants like wheat, carrots, apples, and cotton. I think before I go on, punctuation time. Let's add punctuation. So I could say farmers, but we don't want to keep saying farmers, so why don't we just say they? And there's our capital. They cultivate different types of plants like, that's my comma, wheat, carrots, apples, and cotton, period. Now let's go back and read the whole thing. All year long, farmers raise crops and livestock. They cultivate different types of plants like wheat, carrots, apples, and cotton. We're going to give you one more piece of information about what do they do with this wheat, carrots, cotton. How do people use them? We now have a detail about crops. I could leave it at that, or I could expand on this detail. I could add one more sentence. Let's add one more sentence just to show you how. All right, boys and girls, all year long, farmers raise crops and livestock. They cultivate these plants to grow wheat, carrots, apples, and cotton. Those are some of the types of plants they grow, aren't they? Maybe we could add one more sentence. Everyone look at me and say, who cares? Why do we need to do that? Why do they graze those crops? Well, let's draw some people here. And people use these different types of plants for two reasons. One, to eat. Ooh, maybe I'll put a little face like, I'm eating something. Or they use them for their clothes. Maybe I'll draw like a shirt. We know that people use plants in order to eat or for their clothes. We're going to say the whole lecture note piece over again. So again, constant rehearsal. Ready? All year long, farmers raise crops and livestock. They cultivate plants like wheat, carrots, apples, and cotton. People eat these plants or wear them for their clothes. Wow. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have punctuation time again. People. I think I'll write people here. Use these plants for food or for their clothes, period. So now we go back and we rehearse the whole thing again. You may be asking, how long do you do this? This is not an activity that you have to do in one setting. I do this during science or social studies time and when I'm introducing a unit of study. If you find you have a lot of information, break it up over 2 to 3 days. Each day you come back, you rehearse what you have previously put on the lecture notes, and then you add more. Let's just look at our next page. I'm not going to do this next section because you have a basic idea of how this works. Notice I have livestock here, crops here. Because this was categories, I wanted to show you there was no order that these had to be in. So I put crops and livestock in a different order on this page when I was doing lecture notes. Again, what we're looking at is the big idea is they raise crops and livestock. How are we going to organize it? Categories, whole to part in this case. And there were 2 parts, crops and livestock. So we wrote that out. Then we gave the details. What information do I need to tell you? I need to tell you what kind of crops do they raise. So I did that. And then we said, and how do we use them to eat or to wear clothes? If you notice on the next page, what you'll see is livestock. And I had a vocabulary word there, domestic. So I would have written out the word domestic and then thought aloud what domestic means. And then after we talked about how they raise domestic livestock, or domestic animals, I should say, then what we have is how do they use those animals for fun, to eat, or for their clothing as well. After we do that, I had my punctuation time and we orally rehearse it. Notice on page 39, where my sample lesson is here, this was actually a first grader. I was writing out the lecture notes on a document viewer, and the first graders had their own organizer and they were filling it in and orally rehearsing. So during my science block in class, I was giving these lecture notes, and that was about a 20 to 30 minute block of time each day. We would take out the paper and continue filling it in, orally rehearsing it. Then I would have the kids orally rehearse it over and over. If they were able to say it, then they would write it out. And notice here was a student's sample piece of writing. So what do we have? We labeled it farms. All year long, farmers raise livestock and crops. Livestock are domestic animals. People use them for fun, eating, and clothes. Crops are plants they cultivate. People eat plants like apples and carrots and make clothes from cotton. So here we have an informational paragraph that we were able to write connected to my front-loading lesson about the farmers. What's wonderful about this is I didn't have to wait until the end of the unit of study to do a writing project. Lecture notes allows me to give language, develop academic language, vocabulary, concepts, as well as having kids take it to writing, even before they know the information. So this is an absolutely powerful activity I suggest you do all year long, and your kids' expository, informational, explanatory writing will increase and improve in achievement levels like you will not believe.